call this episode number 2, what to eat. All right, I'm going to talk with a lot of confidence and certainty about this, but this is specifically for my situation. And like everything I'm going to say, take all of it with a grain of salt. Not a medical expert, just a guy who's been living with ankylosing spondylitis for 2 decades now. The first thing that I would say is be very skeptical of what people say. There's a lot of misinformation out there when it comes to nutrition, what to eat, what solves autoimmune disorders. I think the ongoing theory that I have is that everyone has certain things that their body gets sensitive towards, and it's for you as an individual to sort out what those insensitive things are, or sensitive things are. I want to give you quick context on how I've experimented with everything that I've done, and I learned it through going to college. I went to school to become a physiotherapist, or at least that was the idea somewhat. Really, my primary goal was to figure out my body and figure out my condition the best that I possibly could. And one of the biggest things that I learned was how people actually do research. Without going into way too much detail, you basically have to have your group who's going to be taking or doing whatever activity thing that it is, and then you have to have a control group. That's the only way that you can conduct effective research. But for ourselves as individuals, unfortunately, there's not like 18 versions of me. So I only have me. Because there's so many variables going on, because there's so many components to what I've discovered affects the condition, because it's not just nutrition, exercise, there's a lot of psychological components to it as well. The 5 categories of things that I would pay attention to: my overall sleep, time, quality, my exercise, how much my output actually is, what I'm training like, how much cardio I'm doing, all of those aspects, my stress levels overall. Some periods I'm much more stressed out than other times. And then my nutrition. Those are the 5 categories that I would try to look at throughout my life to make sense of. Basically, if I'm experimenting with one thing, I'll try to keep the other 4 as consistent as I possibly can. And so when I was experimenting with food, what I would do is I would do trials essentially for myself of 30 to 90 days. I wouldn't just do it one time. I would do things sometimes 3, 4, 5 times over, just because I would rotate through different diets to see if I could get similar results. And I found that to be the most definitive way to figure out what worked for me and what didn't work for me. I listed off all the diets that I tried: sugar-free, dairy-free, gluten-free, vegetarian, vegan, organic, ketogenic, paleo, and then something I called Dairy Plus, which it just ended up, dairy was like the staple in my diet. I had it for like milk and cheese and my protein and all of that stuff. The TLDR for this is the paleo diet. That's what I found to be the most effective. The ketogenic diet is a close second. To get specific on how this actually helped, the symptoms specifically that these diets changed and helped with were my brain fog, which was something that I struggled with for many, many years. It was a continuous problem that I had. And so I was trying to explore different ways to get more mental clarity. The other one was acute and chronic pain. So flare-ups and then just regular daily residual pain. I found that the ketogenic diet was probably the best for brain fog and inflammation in general. My acute and chronic pain went down. It plummeted quite aggressively, and it was incredible. The only problem that I have with the ketogenic diet, and the reason why it's number 2 for me, is because my energy output wasn't the same for exercise. So I'm a guy who likes to do lots of HIIT training, lots of high intensity exercising, and the ketogenic diet I found was just roughly like 20 to 30% off the top end of the energy that I could actually expend. I just felt bagged. Paleo is what I continued to stick with. Like, the paleo diet seemed to help with my mental fog, with my condition, with essentially all the symptoms that I was struggling with. An extension of what happened through all this experimentation, one of the most interesting things that I discovered was that I am entirely convinced that gut health has a very large connection to the condition and our immune systems altogether. This is just totally anecdotal. This might sound a bit bizarre, but at the beginning of all of this, my sensitivity to bad food was high. So if I ate lots of processed stuff in a short period of time, I noticed that my pain would skyrocket quite fast and quite aggressively. And if I had good food, it would take a long period of time for me to actually feel the results of it. That flipped on me after about 3 or 4 years of eating really clean. I became more sensitive to good food and less sensitive to bad food. So I've been able to have more of a moderate diet. I would call it like a moderate paleo diet, where I've been able to have crackers as well as some other processed foods in the mix, like pastas, breads, those kinds of things. It can never be too much. I always have to keep a very close eye on what I'm eating and how often I'm eating it. But for the most part, I've noticed that I've been able to, after eating clean for a really long period of time, I was able to start introducing bad foods again, or highly processed carbs, back into my diet somewhat in a way that wasn't so debilitating. Next thing I'll talk about, what I also did to probably bolster my gut health was that I introduced kombucha, kimchi, and sauerkraut. It started off with kombucha for many of those years, and then I graduated up to kimchi and sauerkraut became one of the biggest staples in my diet every single day. And I do that very specifically for gut health. It's an acquired taste, but if it makes you feel better, if it's good for you, who gives a shit? The next thing I'll say are supplements. And the list of supplements that I've tried is a little bit ridiculous. Honestly, I think at this point it'll probably be close to 50 supplements. Okay, so the supplements that I take really consistently and have for a long time, I've weeded out all the ones that I didn't think were benefiting me substantially enough for me to actually pay for it and consistently take it on an ongoing basis. But the first one that I will say, turmeric with black pepper for inflammation specifically. I learned from my nutritionist that you actually have to have black pepper with your turmeric. If you don't, you won't really get the same kind of active benefits without having black pepper in it. So you have to read the labels closely. Glucosamine chondroitin. I take this specifically for joint health. I usually take 3 to 5 fish oil pills a day, and that's for inflammation as well as brain health. I take vitamin D specifically for mood. And then the last one that I take is creatine. I use that just for muscle strength overall and going to the gym and making sure that my muscles are big and strong to support my body that feels very weak. I find having much stronger muscles has always helped with all of my joint pain, and I'm convinced it's because the stronger that your muscles are, the easier your body has a time holding it all together. A little added bonus from all of my running adventures, magnesium biglycinate, bisglycinate, whatever, doesn't matter. This one. That's for active recovery and muscle function. And it definitely, that one I know for certain works. It's noticeable that your muscles hurt less. You can get a bit better sleep with it. I want to be extraordinarily clear with this too. If you had to prioritize what to focus on, nutrition I think should be like 90%. It's like a 10% little additional stuff when it comes to supplements and things like that. Supplements are much more difficult in my experience to detect their effectiveness or not. Nutrition, it was so much easier. It was very straightforward. It felt like it was clean cut. Supplements may be a placebo effect for me, and I'll say that very honestly. If you know anything about the placebo effect and something that I learned from the book, The Expectation Effect, outstanding book. I feel like everyone should read that, especially that deals with chronic illness in general. The placebo effect works, and it works better than most things do. It's incredible, and so that book convinced me entirely that even if you don't know if these are working or not, but you think they are, it's well worth it to take some supplements at the end of the day. It doesn't even matter. If you feel like you're doing something for yourself, chances are you're going to feel a positive benefit from that. Even if it's a sugar pill, I found out it's actually worthwhile taking. It's something that I take quite seriously, and it's a little bit ridiculous, but I know this is a little bit hodgepodge, and I don't want to... I'm trying not to sound overly serious and certain about any of my claims here because ultimately at the end of the day, like, I'm not a nutritionist, right? I just had my experience, and I'm very confident with everything that I've learned in myself. And it's allowed me to function much better as a person. I've been able to mentally think through a lot more. My mental capacity, my physical capacity, my overall symptoms, my pain, everything has gotten better with my nutrition. Most of the people anecdotally that I know who have had large amounts of success have pretty much universally talked about nutrition as being a very core concept of why they feel a lot better and how changing up their diets and their lifestyle has helped them so much. Oh, and the last point that I will make, there's so many things that are bad. Just trying to think about all the things that are really bad for this condition that I've discovered, and like alcohol, sugars. I found red meat to actually be something that was negatively affecting me, so I always eat chicken or fish, like white meat in general. Oysters, seafood, love it. Makes me feel fantastic. If I had to steer clear of anything, packaged goods, processed grains, and sugars. Those seem to be like just across the board pretty much bad for everyone. And I would encourage you to start slow. If you're not perfect with your routine, that's okay. All of us feel sad sometimes, especially when our conditions hurt like crazy, and it's okay to just go and get some ice cream. But I think anticipating that like it might have some negative effects, it might be a bit of a negative loop where like you feel sad, you get in pain, you eat some garbage food, and then you start feeling bad again. and it gets even worse. Like, you got to kind of catch yourself in that cycle, and it's common. I think it's okay to be in that cycle. I think it's just important to catch yourself when you should, so that you're not causing undue pain and negative symptoms on yourself. That was kind of my hodgepodge attempt at nutrition. Like I said, I'm not a professional at this. I know what I know about myself. I don't know much about anyone else. That's just my experience. In the next one, I'm going to briefly talk about something that is a little out there, and it's stress. How it affected me and how much it changed my life when I learned a handful of things about the connection between my body and my mind. You're right. You guys are fucking awesome. I'll talk to you in the next episode.